Next up, we have Jeffrey Collier and Coty Kuschinsky from Saginaw Intermediate School District. Coty, I just said that wrong, and I am terribly sorry there. They're
Um,
going to share how showing up visibly and often helps you build the culture that you want. So, if you all would be so kind as to open up your workbooks, we're going to be right at page 23. And then let's go ahead and welcome Jeffrey and Coty with some applause emojis in the chat, you guys. All right, Saginaw friends, the floor is yours.
Thank
all
you
right.
kindly.
Thank you very much. All right, folks. Well, welcome. We're going to be talking today about our story, our presence, building culture through visible leadership today. So let's just do some quicker little introductions about who we are from the state of Michigan, because we understand that educational service agencies operate different across the country. So I'm going to let Jeff take it away for that first part there.
Well, hello, everybody. It's really exciting to be able to be with you today and to be able to work in partnership with such an amazing company with Apogee. Say company, really thought partners and brothers and sisters in arms. We're all stronger together as we move forward and build our leadership. I'm Dr. Jeffrey Collier. I'm entering my 15th year as a superintendent. Michigan has 56 ISDs or intermediate school districts that provide global support and encompassing provisional leadership support for our local school districts here. We are a countywide entity with serving about 26,000 students, 750 plus employees, and about $130 million budget in our organization. So in Michigan, even though our demography continues to shrink as much of the country is showing with data, we are still a very scaled superintendent leadership focused team that exists purely to provide incredible servant leadership and customer service to our constituent districts. And we are focused on always looking at how we're talking about leadership, communication, culture, and connection. And that's what we're going to be talking about today, that sensibility of presence. So as we talk and dive into the ability to talk about scale, each of you will be able to hopefully resonate to what your scale is at your district to be able to understand where your presence is, which is such a challenge in instructional leadership.
Thank you, Jeff. My name is Coty Kuschinsky. I'm the Chief of Staff and Communications Director here at Saginaw ISD. I just celebrated my 4-year anniversary on Saturday with Saginaw ISD, and I do have some experience in the private sector. I was a former television journalist and all that good stuff. So we have a bunch of different experiences to bring to the table, and I think Jeff and I in our partnership has worked well over the years, specifically about visibility and presence around our district. All right. So first, we kind of wanted to share what does presence and visibility mean to us, and also what does the research tell us? So we can say all day, yeah, presence and visibility is important, but why is it important? And obviously, we love making data-driven decisions. So has most of the team heard of Gallup, Human X, or any sort of staff engagement tools? I see some head nods. Great. So we started using Gallup about 3 years ago now as our staff engagement tool. And we did 2 implementation rounds of that. And then we switched over to Human X, which is an offshoot of Gallup, to be a little bit more team focused. So I wanted to share some data with you folks that we've found. And then I'll have Jeff take it away about how we've implemented some of these things. So I'm going to take the first 2 bullets here. Gallup has found through their research, and I have that source below for you guys if you want to take a look at that later. Employees who feel recognized are 45% less likely to leave their organization after 2 years. So I know attraction and retention is big for the team here on the call today. Effective recognition makes employees 5 times more likely to feel connected to culture. And Jeff, I'll have you take the rest.
Okay. I want to start with a question on this that's really going to frame where we're at. And the question is for your reflection. However, how many of you have felt that it's impossible for you to reach your organization, wherever you are, whether you're in a classroom, if you're in a building, if you are a department team leader, if you're a superintendent? How often have you felt inadequate in being able to reach and touch base with somebody every single day? How often have you felt that you just need to be copied? There needs to be more of you to be able to handle more of the tasks, or be able to get into that lesson classroom that you wanted to be at, or be at that student engagement piece, or be in that team meeting. What we have discovered is that physical presence is indicative of something that really drives culture. And it's something that we have to be able to think differently about whether or not we have the individual capacity and the capability, regardless of what our role is, to be able to lead from where we're at and to control our controllables. So we began asking a lot of different questions that sometimes have been on an introverted reflection scale, not really great to hear the answers of. But we've been focusing so much on candor and transparency and trust that we've been driving our decisions about presence, as you'll see, that drives our conversation today, based on this research. So when we're thinking about talent and attraction, we turn to two very scaled, internationally and nationally understood pros in Gallup and Human X, which, oh, by the way, also happen to be in the home city of Alpaca in Omaha, Nebraska. So we started with Gallup, and then we found that when Coty will talk to us a little bit more, we switched to Human X. Our focus right now, and one of our non-negotiables, we have 3 non-negotiables at Saginaw ISD. The first is to provide the highest caliber of staff experience. The second is to ensure that we are providing the gold experience for our students, our families, and our community. And people will say, well, that sounds inverted. Shouldn't it be students, families, community first? And we talk about putting on the oxygen masks for us ourselves to make sure that we have a very healthy culture by which we continue to serve, which is our third non-negotiable. We only exist to serve and to lead forward. So if we're not providing that standard, if we don't have great staff and great culture, there's no way we're going to be able to lead forward and be able to enhance the possibilities that we can do. So our third non-negotiable is providing the highest caliber experience of customer service and student experiences for our community. So the first part of that staff experience, is what's driving us in our research to be able to say, how can we best attract staff? How can we make sure that staff feel important? How can we honor staff? And how can we make sure that they have the ability, within the climate that we're working to evolve, to be engaged?
All right. So with our results with Gallup, which we'll get into a little bit later, we definitely are diving in on that recognition. So I would say that presence and visibility recognition is a tool to do both of those things. That fourth bullet there, we're talking about the switch from Gallup to Human X. Gallup and Human X, both of their research has found that the leaders that the employees interact with the most often have the greatest influence on their workplace experience. And then if we dive into that recognition part a little bit more, only about 1 in 3 employees strongly agree that they receive recognition in the past 7 days. So we've had a lot of team conversations of why 7 days. Folks get very stuck on that. We've got some analytical, teams that are very black and white where, okay, if the 7 days is ticking, here's my time bomb here. 7 days really comes from, you should know it as a no-brainer, that the 7 days don't matter because you know that it happens so much that it must be a yes. So just kind of frame your mind around that really quick.
And to consider your reflections as we move forward, and your reflections are going to set your day and your experience moving forward. That fourth bullet is really key as we dive deep into ownership of presence, whether that's physical presence, whether that's influential presence. That fourth bullet is really, really key. And it's one of the hardest things for leaders to be able to say, recognizing we own this and we have to be able to think differently about where our presence is.
All right. So we want to discuss how Saginaw ISD is a little unique. Obviously, all of your districts and buildings have their own little quirks, tweaks, differences. So we just kind of wanted to discuss how we are a little bit different, where presence and visibility might mean a different definition to us, and how can we still do that where we might not be able to physically be there. So Jeff, I'll have you go ahead and start with that.
Yeah, we are spread across the entire county, and this may be novel to you. It may be something that you're just aware of. Florida, for example, if anybody's from Florida, are countywide school districts. Texas is similar to countywide school districts. Their school districts are called ISDs as well, but instead of intermediate, they are independent school districts. When we see this a different scope and scale, I used to serve as a superintendent for 8 years in one of the smallest local school districts in the state of Michigan, 125 square miles with 425 vibrant students running around. Our district was smaller than most elementary schools. So we had to rethink our paradigms here when we begin thinking about how do we connect 700 plus, 750 when we're fully staffed across a countywide perspective with incredible diversity, incredible disparities of socioeconomics, independent school districts that we work to serve, and this vast array of community partnerships as we stand within servant leadership and customer service models. So one of the things that we realized very quickly is that physical presence is not going to cut it for us. It's impossible for us to be physically present all the time. But how can we shift the cognitive dissonance away from having physical presence to being engaged presence and being able to share that as one culture? Or as we talk about, one team, one ISD, regardless of what department or building or part of the county you're in, we are together as one body of culture.
And because we have so many staff that are servicing our 12 local school districts, they often, and we encourage it for them to have a culture identification with their district that they're serving. We've had staff that wanted to gift days back to that local district because they were trying to help out a staff member with cancer. We aren't the same organization, so that's how embedded some of these staff members are within their districts. But that makes it a little bit more complicated to change or work on culture when those folks are so different and we don't have that one-to-one, where a lot of you are sharing that you pop into their classrooms or walk down the hallways. It's sometimes impossible, and if you're already feeling that in one building, you can imagine how that would feel countywide. And especially if we dive a little bit deeper down with the ancillary staff, there's so many different roles. So in your buildings as well, you're talking with custodial staff, you're talking with parapros, you're talking with teachers, you're talking with maybe your other coworkers that are principals and in leadership. So that perspective of culture is going to be a lot different. That perspective of visibility is going to be different. The possibility for visibility is going to be different. And then we often lean on that traditional communication of being in person or sending those newsletters or emails, and that connection might not be enough. So we have little call outs at the bottom of some of these slides. And I just want to leave you with shared culture requires more than shared employment. It requires intentional connection. All right, so next we're going to talk about the low-hanging fruit, what I'm calling it. So a lot of you, again, already shared in the comment section some of that physical presence. So we are going to show why this is different for us, how we do things differently when it's physical and in person. So Jeff, if you want to start off with that internal stuff that we're doing, or I can take internal and you can take external if you want.
No, either way. We are focusing on providing a couple of what we think are good practices. And these surely are not all encompassing. They may be a thought spark for you. It might be something that you've done in the past and you want to revisit, or something that you've heard about that you want to put your spin on. These are things that we've decided or have found to become new best practices for us. So we're constantly iterating on these. And we do have a culture here that I sure hope that words are not cheap, that our actions do match those, that we intentionally fail forward. We want to be able to continue to be progressive for the students and community of today and tomorrow, rather than the nostalgic beliefs or memories of the past. We all have those. I remember what my elementary and middle school and high school years looked like. I remember what the mascot of my community meant. I know what it's like to grab a bag of popcorn on a Tuesday night volleyball game or go to Friday Night Lights. I get all that, but we're talking about talent attraction in a post-COVID new world that is designed for a global industry that's never existed before, and yet we still fall on the same practices because it was good enough for us, or was okay and it was traditional. And where you land in that in your leadership journey, whether you're just starting, if you're experiential, if you're transitioning into a new district, if you're working with loggerheads and barriers within your central administration, wherever that is, these are some areas that we can begin to lead from where we're at. So every time we go to one of our campuses, or if we go to meet a local superintendent on another campus, or if we walk into a hospital that we're providing service to, or a juvenile detention facility, the county jail, we have our meeting, but we always build in extra time to visit, talk, walk down the hallways, pop into a classroom, making sure we're not disruptive, and working to provide that physical presence when we're there. We have so many campuses. Sometimes I cannot get to a campus maybe every other month. And that's really embarrassing to me, but it doesn't mean my staff can't be there. And it surely doesn't mean that we won't have presence. And then we extend that presence when we can. We also, there will be a video showing in a little bit. We do a good job, I think, of surprising our staff with recognition visits and celebrations. We have an example of that. We have 750 employees. So If we had every employee once a day, it would take 2 years to get through all of our employees. So we're constantly talking about building the content by which it's not just us celebrating, it's colleagues, it's peers, it's the community. We bring leaders together monthly for a superintendent's impact forum that we initiated this year. We found that communication, although considered in a militaristic, top-down, hierarchical org chart, which we all know how crazy and ridiculous and sometimes purposeful that can be, sometimes that information is filtered like the old phone game. So what we do is we are very intentional in making sure that we are investing, even at huge cost per hour of what the taxpayer may say, to bring our leadership teams together once a month to connect, to convene, to influence, to facilitate with each other, and be able to lead forward. And then we have a gigantic opening day that we've invested limited resources in and have huge support by our board and our community to say, we understand how important culture is, because when culture is right, leadership and service can become better. Coty?
And then I'm going to pop into external visibility. Obviously, as a communications director, that's a big chunk of my role. But I do think it's important because your staff and your community are watching. So one, we do host legislative breakfasts where we bring all of our local legislators that might impact our school districts to a breakfast once a month. We also, as a district and as leadership, participate in our chamber events, community organizations, and regional committees. And then we maintain relationships with our local superintendents. So I think we have Allison Jordan on the call. Hopefully she can attest to that. That's one of our local superintendents. And then lastly, we support our leaderships and our staff to serve on boards, committees, and initiatives beyond education. So we want them to be, pillars in our community because they are ambassadors in all ways that they represent us. And it looks like Allison says yes in all caps and explanation points. So thank you, Allison.
This is a picture here as we work for political outreach. It's not about us advocating as the sole voice of education. We are facilitating and convening the connections by which our local superintendents, our local principals, business leaders can all come together. And this was a great picture with 3 of our local House representatives in the state of Michigan who are so unbelievably diverse in their viewpoints. They absolutely represent the tenor of today's politics, but work together to understand creative solutions because we have been investing the time to get to know each other first as humans and then be able to talk about what our solvents can be for students moving forward. Just another example that is really it's just a reach out, and you'd be surprised how your legislators would want to come together.
All right. So again, that was the low-hanging fruit. Now we're moving on to how can you do things a little bit differently. So our story is our communications initiative here at Saginaw ISD. We have been running it for 3+ years now, and we just hit more than 6,000 community farmed, if you want to say, stories. So what that means is we give staff access to our storytelling application, and they can go on there, write captions, share photos, and it goes right out to our website and our social media pages. Moderated, of course, because we have to have a little bit of tentative control of that, but just to give you the quick synopsis of what our story is. So scaling that visibility means we're not just showing up in person, but what can we do with our digital tools in our tool belt? So like I said, we empowered employees to become storytellers. They're not just the stories of our subjects, so they can have that cell phone and that app in their pocket. And when they find that something amazing is happening in their classroom, we definitely empower them, support, and encourage them to tell those stories through that program. And then we made recognition and celebration a shared responsibility. So they also use our Story program with that app to do Employee of the Month, which you'll see in a moment. So we are allowing it to not die in a Google form anymore. We want to make sure that those 40 nominations that happen in Google form, we're taking all of those and not just the winner and posting those publicly, and really having our staff do that, where it's not just leadership deciding or leadership nominating. So we don't, once we get that monthly bucket, we don't choose somebody from it based on what the nomination was. We just do it at random in one of those little free wheels. So it's not a leadership decision. We've also increased visibility because of this across departments, programs, and locations. So we have a communications buffet. We still have all, the newsletters and the email updates, the text messages. We actually just launched a magazine that goes out quarterly. We have all of those things, but our story really is the machine that operates in the background that is allowing our staff to tell their stories. And what happens is, and I'll let Jeff speak to this from a leadership perspective, is when folks post on our social media and on our website, it's kind of like a long feed of how they can stay updated with each other. So not only are they having visibility with leadership, but with folks that may have never even met before or didn't know that they worked together at the ISD. So Jeff, if you wanted to talk about that a little bit.
Absolutely. What we're looking at is a wide spectrum of opportunity to be engaged. We know that engaged people are engaging people. So we look at this, and I saw a nice comment come across about the communications buffet. This is something that we've been talking about for really the last decade that has spanned across a couple of districts in development of our story. But I think about my daughter, who just turned 20, and my dad, who's 79, and how they consume content and media, but they both represent constituent district voters. So how they consume information, how they remain engaged with a service organization is really different. It can be as different as political opinions. So when we think about a communications buffet, we have to think about how we're hitting different generations, different modalities, different accesses. And that's where we want to make sure that if somebody likes potatoes, we got to serve them 4 different ways. If somebody likes breads, we want to make sure we have some extra breads. We want to make sure that we're gluten sensitive. We want to make sure that we're hitting everybody as best as we can to be able to provide this communications buffet. And what that does then is it gives everybody a viewpoint into the great things that are happening here. It allows a shared governance that really is crowdsourced, as Coty was just talking about. And it's impossible for Coty as chief of staff or Coty or Kimberly as our communications team. If you think about our communications team as really one person that's shared in 2 different areas, we have 750 people canvassing an entire county. How in the world did we get 6,000 plus stories? It's because we have shared governance and we're crowdsourcing the positivity of what's going on. Many of you may have heard or seen Joe Sanfilippo speak around the country. He talks about the million magic moments of awe that take place in the classroom. If we compound that across a campus, a building, a department, we're talking about tens of millions of magic moments of awe that we take for granted, or the community, because we have been such a global commodity, just assume these things are taking place. And we miss the first tooth that's being pulled out or dropping. We miss the first time a kid can go across the swings or swing on their own. We miss the opportunity of a really great celebration of an essay or the first time a student stood up to do a poetry jam. But the classroom's not missing those things. And we've empowered everybody to be able to take it in real time and then celebrate the students, the team, the lesson plan, whatever it may be. Or what we found is even more powerful is celebrating each other to really get into shared governance of peer review, the old pineapple charts that we used to talk about, popping in to see classrooms, learning from each other, staying back at night before you go to bed and reviewing our social media pieces. And it's not perfect, but it's a start. And it's a start we're willing to take the next couple steps on. 6,000 stories over the last 3 years. We have 750 employees. That quick math doesn't add up very much. I'm surprised we don't have 10 stories a person every single day with all the positive things that are happening. But Coty reminds me we break the internet. I'm willing to try that. Our goal is to empower everybody to have the comfort by which they know they can lead from where they're at without the physical presence of the engagement. So taking a look at the data, the research, providing the encompassing ability to truly drive choice. We know that we cannot change anybody's opinion, but we can create a climate by which people can choose how they wish to positively engage with our culture. And that's what this initiative is.
Thank you. And I wanted to call out the screenshot because I know that's probably a small one for an example, but this was shared yesterday on our social media page by our staff. So this is our work-based learning staff that took our special education students out to one of our local organizations, Amigo Mobility. So if you've ever seen a little Amigo cart at your local grocery store, that was probably them. That's built in Saginaw, Michigan. So I would have never have been able as a communications director to be there and capture this magic moment. So the staff were able to, use their application, post it online. I know about it, and now Jeff knows about it. So if he runs into our vocational consultant, Susanna Williams, in the hallway, he can say, hey, Susanna, I saw that awesome post that you made last night. Tell me a little bit more about that. And she feels very seen and heard in ways that she didn't have to like send an email to kind of give herself a pat on the back to the superintendent. He sees and knows that that is going on. And then also her coworkers know those things too. So it's not just about the leadership visibility, it's about our staff as a whole. Because again, when you're a large organization as we are, it's difficult to do. And there's so many cross-sectionalities of this department or program does this, and this program could help with that. And this is kind of a way that they can keep up with each other. So it's definitely been a conversation piece. I will say a tidbit, if you guys have executive assistant staff at all or any help when it comes to your calendar, I would automatically bake in maybe 15 minutes before and 15 minutes after whatever visit that you're doing at a building, because we make sure that, Jeff has time to walk around, even if he's about to be a little bit late. We try to keep him on task, obviously, but he's able to bring up these conversation pieces with his staff in ways that they feel very recognized. So we try our best with that strategy.
Just a moment longer on this. The wins are infinite, and we haven't even scratched the surface on all the wins. This post is an example that took place less than 24 hours ago that hits a group of students who are not always celebrated, a global industry that is right here as we honor in Saginaw. So it's an economic, it's a commerce. The Chamber of Saginaw County has already weighed in on this post. It's going out in ways to be able to provide interesting observations, more awareness, and it's celebrating our staff, and it's building culture and climate by which we can do that. We did not have to be physically present, but the voluminous amount of our presence is growing because we've empowered our team to join and be active, engaged authors with our culture.
So the call out for this section is our story transformed visibility from a leadership responsibility into an organizational norm. So it's for everybody. It's not just for you as leaders in the room. All right, next we're going to share a quick video. It's just a minute long of that Employee of the Month program that we do. So this is another way for us to be visible, but we take the opportunity in person and scale the visibility to be public and post it online and through our internal channels as well.
Hi, Angel. Good morning. Good to see you for the second time today. We're here to celebrate you as our Orange Spot recipient. So what I'd like to do is read this. Is from Ms. Britton, Ms. Tammy Britton, and she shared that Angel builds amazing relationships with students and staff, not only in our classroom, but throughout the entire building. She consistently goes above and beyond as a true team player, always stepping in to support any student or staff member in need of a helping hand. Thank you. Angel's dedication, positivity, and commitment to others truly make a difference each and every day. Thank you very much. Thanks for being an amazing leader. You're always leading forward. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. So, you're in the long lineage of Orange Spot recipients.
All right, folks, you know how difficult it is to try and get out of videos on Canva. We've already discussed this today, and it's just always something with Canva. So my apologies for that. All right. So next we wanted to talk about being intentional about these efforts to be more visible and have connection with our staff. So I wanted to share with you our strategic compass, which is just a fun branding of a strategic plan so that you could see our pillars and see our intentionality behind that. So our first pillar is educational advancement. Our second is cultural improvement. So this is a big one for that visibility piece. We want to fortify an organizational culture of transparency, accountability, and continuous improvement. So we're using those data points. Workforce excellence is also a big one. We want to recruit, develop, and retain a diverse, high-performing workforce. So that goes right into our Human X data and making sure that we're working on staff engagement and culture. Community engagement. So we want to cultivate and enrich meaningful partnerships and community engagement with not only our external partners, but internal as well, and understand how Saginaw ISD works as in a system of our county as we work to service those 26,000 students. And then lastly, sustainability planning. So more data for you all today. So measuring what matters. So we want to explain to you what our approach is. We're going to give you the results, the nitty gritty of it all. So our approach is we want to measure that employee engagement consistently. We want to share our results transparently. So when we got our results back, both with Gallup and Human X, we posted them publicly. So that went out on social media, that went out in a newsletter, that went out during meetings. We wanted to make sure everybody saw it, everybody understood it. And then we developed action plans based on that feedback. And then we keep revisiting and refining strategies over time. So an example of that is obviously moving from Gallup to Human X. We made the decision that we need to focus more on teams because of how unique we are. So we wanted to make sure that we focus down on not just an organizational picture as a whole, but as our team because of how unique we were. So Jeff, I'll have you go into the results unless you'd like me to take that.
Well, yeah, the results are not what we want. They're less than 100%. This is indicative of the need for us to focus on culture and climate, environment, leadership, communication. And this was our first base score that we received about 10 months ago when we switched to Human X. And Human X has in the upper right-hand quadrant the most highly satisfied, most highly engaged staff members. And that's less than 50%. That means that more than 1 in 2 people are not highly satisfied or highly engaged. Well, how in the world does that hit our non-negotiables? If you're not highly satisfied or highly engaged, how are you going to be able to provide the incredible gold standard of servant leadership and customer service that our community deserves? So we are very transparent. We're standing bare naked at the crossroads of saying we are not perfect, but we're striving to get better every single day. As you take a look, and what we're assured of by those that are the data scientists is that we're in a really great spot. Statistically, there's going to be about 5% that no matter what you do, if you give them $1 million every single day at noon, they still may well be disengaged. And as the boat is moving this way, they're rowing the opposite way. Or sometimes, especially if we get into some of our positive psychology theory, not only are you rolling the boat one way, they're in the back of the boat drilling a hole in the bottom. That's just something that's going to happen. And sometimes that can be changed on a daily with morale. Sometimes it cannot be changed. But this is the data that we've been taking a look at. We're really excited about this year's data survey. We've been very intentional about communicating our why, linking it to a strategic compass, following it with measuring data that matters, and describing and linking this to a non-negotiable about why we wake up and come to work every day, to serve and to lead. Coty, do you want to talk about the Gallup increase and the statistical significance?
Yeah, absolutely. So, like I said earlier, we did Gallup twice before we pivoted over to Human X to be more team driven. So our first implementation of the survey, we had a result of 4.11, and then we only increased it by 0.06. Now I say only, that was expected. Gallup let us know that it's going to hurt a little bit to see that, but to, change a ship's course in comparison to a jet ski is a little bit different. So I like that analogy. That helped a lot. But what it meant, though, the bigger move culturally is that we cared enough to survey them at all and then transparently share the results and what our movement was and our strategies. So I think that was the bigger change that we were looking for. And if we kept, rolling this out with practice, obviously that would have been a little bit different. But now that we're changing to Human X, you guys can see the results there, and Jeff explained it perfectly of what that lower L looks like. So that's more focusing on teams where we can be a little bit more surgical in our strategies and our response to the results. And then a big piece for us, because we understood that recognition tied right into that visibility piece, is that we wanted to focus on their question 4, which focused on recognition. So that was our lowest result out of our 12 questions. And so we received a 2.72. Nationwide, globally, that's the largest issue that Gallup has. The results are always that Q4 is the lowest industry-wide. So we did increase that by over 0.2, which is statistically significant. So we were very excited that our efforts over 1 year, we doubled, tripled down on recognition, made sure that was a big piece for us, and we had some results there. So we were very excited about that, and we're continuing to work on that with Human X. But again, I think, go ahead.
Yeah. Anecdotally, is this working? Is it not working? We believe that it as absolutely is working, and we had a wonderful opportunity. Even though there's a tax on leadership transition, we had several team members from an executive lens become executive directors in other school districts. We have one become a new assistant superintendent and a new superintendent in the state. So as we're building leadership and moving on, we've become a place of incubating leadership to be able to continue to move forward. So that sometimes can be taken out of context and thought, well, is that not good? Every person is moving on to parts of the state to lead forward under the consideration of what we've been doing. And then the anecdotal feedback is in filling those roles, people are coming into our interview positions. We're saying, do you have any questions? They're saying, is this real? We're doing our research on, is this real? Is this contrived? Is this an advertising shtick? The last 4 executive hires that we've had since March have all been national candidates. We had just hired somebody from New Orleans, moving their family to Saginaw. San Diego moved their family to Saginaw. Wisconsin moved their family to Saginaw on Saturday and started on Monday. And then our director of HR, our new director, Dr. Elizabeth Wolf, has just recently moved back to the area. Previously was living in Morocco and Egypt. So we believe that the culture that we're building is not only attracting a national workforce of the highest caliber of talent, but it's also allowing us to be much more selective as we talk about sometimes sports axioms that talent is our floor, character is our ceiling, and it's all starting with this engaged culture of being able to be present without always having to be physically present.
All right. So lastly, I know we're coming to time here. We're going to leave you with some reflection questions. I know that you have something similar, maybe worded a little bit longer in your workbooks from us. So visibility, where are the most important places and moments for your visibility as a leader? Ownership, where could ownership be expanded beyond leadership just alone? And I would argue, to Jeff's point, beyond just those in-person touch points. Storytelling, what stories are currently missing from your culture? Jeff, any expanding thoughts on those?
No, I think that's going to cover it. We were talking as we were prepping and with Jessica, I said, so we have 30 minutes to talk about 8 years worth of work. Okay. I can say this. I am so humbly gracious for you to select this session and to be able to listen so that we can learn together. I would also invite any type of responsive feedback that you'd like or any questions that you have. If you'd ever like us to come and see you, if you want to come and visit, we want to talk more, we can take this offline, online, whatever. Please know that we are in this together, and I believe that we're stronger together.